The following lecture is entitled Genesis, A Journey of Exploration, given by Rabbi Michoel Friedman. The date is Wednesday, October 13th, 2010.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rabbi Friedman. I know that's very confusing. That's about the only thing I've contributed to this town, confusion. A little bit of a bio. My wife and I moved down south a little more than 2 years ago. We don't consider ourselves Southerners yet, although our kids, well, we won't finish that statement. My wife and I have 6 children. The 6th just entered the world a little more than 3 weeks ago. Thank you. 3 boys and 3 girls. Many of you know who they are. Many of you don't. I look forward to introducing them at one point. Hopefully it won't be bring your kids to Cole Institute graduate program. My wife is from London, so our kids are growing up with a Southern British accent. Go figure. It is a great honor for me to be here this evening, and I'm astounded by the number of you that have come out this evening and subsequent Wednesday night evenings to study Torah. This is actually a very exciting course for me personally, because I've always wanted to do this, and there's no better way of studying than being forced to teach. But I don't consider myself a teacher, and let me explain. See, teaching means that I'd be up in the front, and I'd have all my notes in front of me, and I'd just go, and the next thing I like to say is, everybody writing notes? Good, and this is the next thing, and the next thing after that, and we're going to have a test in a couple of weeks, and groan. And therefore, the course is entitled Genesis, A Journey of Exploration. Because indeed, it is a journey. Every journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. And it may seem overwhelming for many to begin at the beginning and to proceed at a very slow pace. I'm just looking to see if anybody has shifted in their seat, because they're probably wondering, maybe we should be across the hall. But I'll explain. Indeed, a journey means that we're traveling in a particular direction. And a journey of exploration means that we're not necessarily going to get all the answers. That's correct. If you've come for answers, you're in the wrong place. Because to me, questions are much more important than answers. And questions presume an accurate reading of the text. Number 2, they presume that you are thinking, and that you are thinking with an open mind, and that you're willing to take risks in your thinking, and that you're willing to step out of your comfort zone and say, I always thought it said that, and I must have had a different edition, because it sure doesn't say what I thought it said. And this, for those of you who experienced Shavuos night this past year, I see a number of faces, we went for 5 hours strong with pretty much nobody falling asleep except for myself. And it was astounding, because what electrified everyone and what energized everyone was, indeed, approaching the very text that we all thought we knew with fresh eyes. To challenge ourselves, to challenge our assumptions, to challenge our preconceived notions, all of that is wrapped up into this evening's class and subsequent Wednesday nights. Where we will reach, where we will get to in Chumash, I have absolutely no idea. I don't have any particular goals, but one thing I do ask you is, I ask you to have patience not just with me, but with yourselves. Because it's not about how much we've done. It's about grappling, struggling, and approaching the divine book that we have in front of us with a seriousness of purpose and perhaps the ultimate goal, which is to be able to identify at least some elements of the divine in our lifetime. As such, I would like everybody to open up their chumashim. I'm going to do a little housekeeping afterwards, but of course, my wife warned me. My wife has been teaching for about 15 years. I asked my wife, any advice? So she said, are you planning on teaching tonight? I said, no. Tonight's just introduction. She said, let me give you a word of advice. Teach. So we're going to teach for a little bit, and then we'll do just a little bit of housekeeping. Okay, I'd like everybody to turn. Do we have enough chumashim around here? Yes, that's a great idea. Thank you. What's that? Okay, so we begin with Bereishis. Now, one of the challenges that we all have is that our exposure to Chumash. Well, let me just take an informal survey. How many of you have ever had any experience of serious Torah study? Torah, I mean Chumash specifically. Okay, great. So for the rest of us, our exposure to Chumash is pretty much sitting in shul, Shabbos morning, listening to the Torah reading, trying to follow along. Some of us on the Hebrew side, and some of us on the English side. Now, let me just warn you, maybe warn is too severe a term, but one of the challenges that we will have, and part of the process of studying and learning and growing, is to be able to jump the fence from the English to the Hebrew. Because no serious study of Chumash could possibly take place if we hang out on the English side. And it may seem daunting for some, but again, no serious study could take place unless we're willing to take a look at the original words, the actual words. Because the beauty of Lashon HaKodesh, which is not modern Hebrew is based on Lashon HaKodesh. Lashon HaKodesh is biblical Hebrew. The beauty of biblical Hebrew is such that it's multi-dimensional. 3D is a big craze. And we see in 3 dimensions. In fact, one of the tricks that I learned when I was younger was if you put your finger in front of you, you close one of your eyes, and you try to touch that finger, you're going to have a problem. Because depth perception takes place when? I have both eyes. Now, why do I need 2 eyes to perceive depth? Anybody know? Excellent, Gabe. Both of our eyes see objects from ever so slightly different perspectives. And it is the 2 different angles that come together and merge into a full relief, a full dimensional understanding of that which we are looking at. And what we will find very often in Chumash is that it is the multi-dimensional understanding of the text that introduces us to depth. And that things that on the surface seem one way are very not what they seem to be. And that's because we're just reading the surface. And that we're not appreciating the numerous layers of meaning that the Torah is introducing us to. Okay, I'm going to challenge all of you to take a look at the first 5 verses. And if you like to look in the English, that's fine. If you like to look in the Hebrew, that's also fine. And I'd like you to read through them a number of times. And I'd like you to read them very carefully, analyzing what you're reading, and thinking of the following. Do I find anything strange about what I'm reading? Are there any questions that I have? I'll pause for a few minutes. I'm going to stop you right now. I hate doing that, but the reason I'm going to stop you is because we're going to be spending a few weeks on this. or maybe a few months. Just kidding. The particular format that I would like to introduce to this particular class, and this is a trial run because I have not taught this way yet, but I do believe that it's an important feature to introduce into this type of class. And that is, I would like, ideally once a month, but it may happen once every 5 weeks, to divide this class into chavrusa partners. Could be one-on-one, could be one-on-two. Generally speaking, it's best to leave it at one-on-one, but of course, if there's an odd number of people here, of course, well, I could study with them. But the goal of that would be to be able to, I would give out handouts, and we would divide the text into sections and subsections, a number of verses at a time. And through your study with your chavrusa, with your study partner, you will challenge yourselves to approaching the text with a fresh pair of eyes. The advantage of having a chavrusa is none of us see things the same way. And therefore, when you're approaching the same section of text, two people are approaching it, you're going to see it from different angles. And you're going to question different things. And you will make discoveries on your own. The reason why I'd like to do that is 2 reasons. First of all, it gives me a week off. Just kidding. The real reason why I like doing this is because I believe that if you come to the questions on your own, it will allow you to acquire a depth of understanding that you would never be able to do if I would stand up here and say, okay, let's read the next verse. The following are the questions. Let's discuss the questions. And therefore I believe that a personal investment, an investment of time, investment of effort, and an investment of mind will generate a certain connection to that which we're studying that could never be gotten through any other way. And what we just did, again, I don't know how much you, in the matter of moments that I gave you, how far you've gotten, but indeed what we're planning on doing is going verse by verse and with a very fine-tooth comb trying to find the snags. Now, snags, you may say? Do you not believe that the document that's in front of us is of divine origin? If it's of divine origin, it's perfect. How could you ever find a mistake in it? Well, I will tell you that there's a book in front of me, the Metzudah Chumash with Rashi, and Rashi was one of the preeminent medieval commentators on Chumash, and his entire life mission was to find every mistake in the Chumash. Now, of course, he didn't call it a mistake, and the truth is, neither should we. Because, of course, it's not a mistake. What is it? Not just interpretation, but a challenge. I would call it a red flag. I would even venture to say that it's a big X that says, start digging here. Because indeed, that's exactly what God wanted us to do, is start digging. And in fact, a number of months ago I was giving a class. We were doing a section of the prophets, and I was explaining to the assembled that there are many discrepancies in this particular verse, and let us see how the Talmud, how the sages in the Talmud understood, first of all, identified this discrepancy, and second of all, understood what this discrepancy is coming to teach us. And a fellow, very bold, frank, and just candidly asked, why is it so hard? Why can't you just say it simply, just say it straight out? Why do you have to be so complicated? I see a bunch of nods in the room. And I said, that's a great question. In fact, when I was younger, I felt that way too. And it's frustrating. But you know what? It's this book, the Torah, is a blueprint of reality. Would we think that life is simple? would we think that human relationships are simple? Would we think that our role in this world is simple? Clearly not. And if we were observing a person doing a particular act and we had to define what was happening, we would struggle. Because there's the simple what we see, but there's a depth. And that challenges us to be able to see things perhaps not as impetuously, not as simply as we would think observing things should be done. And as such, this is a training ground. It's not just an inherent study, but it's also a training ground to be able to understand that life isn't simple. It's surely not simplistic. And the profundity of Torah can be seen by the hundreds, the thousands of nuances, and the incredible depth that I have been privy to perhaps a minute percentage. But to me, it's just astounding how profound and how deep the Torah really is. And yes, from week to week, we turn the pages and we read the story. And if we went to day school when we were kids, we've heard the Bible stories. And it just seems cute and nice, and we share it with our kids. And yes, there have been questions that have been gnawing at us for years and years, but we've never taken it seriously enough, or perhaps we have, but we've never taken the time to address those real questions. And perhaps that's why we're here as part of this course. So let's jump in. Bereishis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz, verse 1. I'm on the Hebrew side. Excuse me, I beg your indulgence. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I'm just going to read straight through till the very end of this section on page 2. And then we'll go back. V'ha'aretz, and the land, haisa, sohu v'vohu, v'choshech al pnei sahom. I'm going to translate this, although I will admit that the translation is totally inadequate. But I'll do it anyways. The Haaretz, and the land was tohu vavohu. Anyone? Topsy-turvy, good. Desolate. Chaos. But all pretty much, all aligned to the same basic concept, that there was a jumble here. The land was tohu vavohu, v'choshech al pnei sahom, and there was darkness on the face of the deep. Deep of what? You have to have a surface in order to have depth. Okay? Don't know what that means. Ruach Elokim, and the wind, spirit of God, merachef al pnei hamayim, was floating on the water. Water skiing? Water. Did somebody say water? Who said water? Who mentioned water? I did. Did somebody mention water anywhere? I didn't see any water, except for here. Let's go on. Vayomer Elokim, God says, Yehi or, let there be light. Vayehi or, and there was light. I don't know. Let's keep going. So God sees light, that it is good. So what do you do with something that ain't broke? You fix it, because it ain't broke. You leave it alone. Okay, seems quite perplexing. God sees light's good, so what does he do with it? He Vayavdel Elokim bein ha'or ubein ha'choshech. So he divided it from itself. I'm just awfully confused. I think I'm quitting for this evening. Okay, he divided it, and he divided between the light and the darkness. Okay, no idea. Vayikra Elokim ha'or yom, and God calls the light day. V'lachoshech kara layla, and to darkness he called night. Vayihi erev vayihi boker yom echad. And that was the first day. Let's go on. Second day. You don't like what?
He turned it around and made the evening and then the morning. First he created day first.
Good.
So why do we have to have all our holidays start the night before?
Is that your real problem? Okay, I don't know what he created first. I didn't say anything about day being created first, but it seems that if he called light day and he created light first, so then perhaps day came first. I'm not sure. In fact, the darkness is part of the chaos. Okay? Tov v'vo is darkness. So, okay?
So he didn't create that?
That's an excellent question.
Darkness is the absence of light.
It's what? It was a mixture. Okay? Go ahead.
What was in the mixture?
Where did the water come from, right? Good question. Now, I have to tell you, I'm sorry. I do have to tell you that I went through the day school system, and in first grade, the Rabbi gets up in the front of the class, and a child's first exposure to Chumash is which parsha? Wrong. Lech Lecha. Who said Lech Lecha? Good. Lech Lecha. This week's parsha. All right. Avram goes out, and we all know the story. Now, it takes a few years for the child to actually realize that what happened to the first two. So, if you're daring to go back to your first grade Rebbe, what happened? Why didn't you start from the beginning? So what's the answer? What? Right, so that's right, because you did it in nursery or preschool. You know, you did it in preschool. My son came home last week, 2 weeks ago, with a beautiful artistic rendition of all the days of creation and what was created on which day. It's beautiful. So he's been there, done that. So it's time to move on. And that indeed is our challenge, because many of us have been there, done that. We've heard the stories. We know what happened during creation. Some of us actually remember what was created on each day. I still have a problem. But obviously, there has to be much more depth than just what did he create. Why does there have to be more depth than that? Okay, why?
The whole object was to bring it into creation for human beings.
Good. The purpose, important. Clearly, Parshas Bereishis has to be much more profound than just a simple description of what happened when. Because whenever you build a building, you build it with a very strong foundation. And if indeed the foundation of the entire universe is here in these first 20, 30, 40 verses, every word here is clearly building an infrastructure of reality as we know it, and most of us don't even know it. We hear about quantum theory, and some of us run to the book, and some of us run away from that type of book. Yes? That's correct. Right? So those are other implications. And we're going to discuss all the implications of Bereishis. But on the simplest level, the building blocks of the universe are being introduced to us. So just simply to say, on the first day this was created, on the second day this was created, and let's go on. And indeed, that's what happens on Shabbos morning, right after Simchas Torah, where we begin the Torah again, before we even get a chance to realize that we started. The Parsha is finished, the Haftorah is being read, and we're sitting there looking at the commentary on the bottom of the Stone Chumash, trying to see if he asked all the questions that I've had, and it's already Parshas Noach, and it's done, finished, until next year, when I'm reminded about all the questions that I had last year, and I get just as frustrated. And it's a problem, until we decide to face it. Indeed, Vayihera Vayivoker Yom Echad. Tell me, where does the Torah begin to describe what was created on the first day? This is not a trick question. I will try to limit myself to this. Yes? Vayomer Elokim Yehi Or. Okay? Anybody agree, disagree? Other opinions? No what?
There was already a beginning. When a person wakes up, as a child, as an adult, you open your eyes and see a new day has started. There's only one thing you left off. A new day has started, but there had to be something before that that started here. The world started in darkness. That's why we have the evening as the beginning of the day. It ends in darkness when you close your eyes and no longer see. And it's 50 to light later.
Ooh.
So it started before. It's not like what's one? Well, there's zero. If there's zero, there has to be something before zero to get to zero.
Agreed. But let me pull you back to the original question. Would you agree that day one's creation began in the beginning of verse 3? Yes, no. Can I hear all the yeses? Why? Oh, I'm sorry. On the first unit of creation, what's the first thing that God said? Good question. Right?
This is what the shot that we believe that the earth was astonishingly empty, but it had to be earth. The second component was there was darkness surrounding the earth, and there was water. So those two components look to be present in this moment.
So now, okay, keep going. Finish your thought? Good. Is that day one?
I don't know that it was a day yet. There's nothing in this. Darkness is not just separate from light. It just was.
Okay, so let me refine. Again, we're failing because the limitations of the language. When I talk about the first day, I mean the first. We're going to run in circles. When it says, Vayihera Vayivoker Yom Echad, whatever that means, we'll call it a day. We'll call it a day. We're about to call it an evening, but we'll call it a day for lack of a better term. But the first unit of creation, starting from the beginning of time, dare I say. I knew I was getting myself in trouble as soon as the word time. I know. It's only time.
In the first unit, it looks like he created Hashemayim and Earth, heaven and earth.
Okay, so
But we talked about this before. What defines the first day is only by having the second day.
okay,
You really define the first day unless you have second day.
good. So it's the beginning of the unit of time, when time begins, as it were. So let's take a look at the very first verse. Bereishis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'haaretz. How do we translate that verse? We say in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. Now let me ask you a very basic question. Right or wrong? Wrong. How many wrong? I guess everybody else is right or undecided. The question is, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Right or wrong?
He created the Torah.
Now you're looking at the art scroll. But yes, you are correct. And indeed, the ArtScroll does translate it correctly because the ArtScroll's translation is based on the oral tradition. But had we not had the ArtScroll, the actual wording seems to be indicating that in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Ask any child what the first verse in the Torah is, and they will tell you, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And we're asking a very simple, basic question. True or false? Bara is in the past, yes. Good. Excellent. I am so happy that somebody noticed a detail in the Hebrew, because the details are really where everything begins. Excellent point. Okay? So how many for true? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Wow. No, nobody.
I'm voting for it.
Gosh. Maybe we should serve coffee. Okay, all of you agree that in the beginning God created the heaven and earth. Okay, now let me ask you a question. What happened on the first day? What did God create? What happened on the first day? What did God create?
Light.
He created light. You cheated.
In the war from each other. So it's like that's when he created heaven and earth. He created light first from the darkness.
So let me just pull back again before we get really entangled. Okay? So I'm trying to go in order. My very first question was, where in the text is the description of what took place on the first unit of creation? And the answer was verse 3. He created emptiness. We'll have to talk about that. That sounds quite profound. But the beginning of creation seems to take place in verse 3. God created light. And yet the very first verse of the Torah seems to be awfully confusing.
Well, it raises the question, how did the earth, the darkness, and the deep get there?
Good.
From which these other things follow.
Good.
We haven't answered that question.
We have not, because we haven't asked the following question. What do all these things mean? Because we're making assumptions. And if there's anything that we need to leave at the door, it's our assumptions. Because it's our assumptions that are getting ourselves all wound up. Yes. Good. Good question. It's a fair question.
What meaning says in the beginning of God's creating the heavens and the earth.
Good.
So I guess in the beginning of God's plan.
So if we are to define the word Bereishis as in the beginning, then Donald has a valid question. In the beginning of what? And then we're really stuck because is it indeed in the beginning? What happened in the beginning? Good. That's an excellent question. The Talmud discusses that. Right. So, if anything has been accomplished this evening, one thing I can tell you is that when I started taking the study of Chumash seriously, I became so frustrated because that's exactly what happens when a person is struggling with something that he or she thought was so simple and yet never realized that it's much more complex than they ever thought. So yes, there are answers, and yes, there are explanations. But again, my feeling is that the focus really should be on taking the text seriously enough that we could appreciate what God had in mind, as it were, when writing these words and communicating it to us. because indeed, every word should be important, and every message that's communicated through the words should be important enough to take seriously. And if we ask good questions, and it does take time to be able to learn what is a good question, and I hate to say a bad question, because I am a firm believer that there is no such thing as a bad question. And please, please, if there is anything on your mind, and if there's anything troubling you, this is a large class, and yes, I will have to juggle the very difficult task that every teacher has to juggle, which is this the type of question that I want to deal with now, or is this the type of question that will lead everybody astray and just confuse people? And please, I beg your indulgence if I decide that that's a great question, but now's not the time to discuss it. If you'd like to come to me after class, I'd be happy to do so. There are many that are embarrassed, shy, timid, and they don't like speaking in public. I respect that as well. I am available after class to speak over certain ideas that you'd like to speak over. Additionally, if you'd like to email me during the course of the week on the topic that we studied on Wednesday evening, or frankly, any topic whatsoever, I am more than happy to address your question. I will leave you with two thoughts. Number one is that I generally do not teach out of the Stone Chumash. I teach out of the Metzuda. The Michoel will make available the cost for a large Metzuda Chumash Bereishis, Volume 1 is $30. The small student edition is $22. If you'd like to purchase it online, you're more than welcome to do so. I am purchasing mine through Judaica Corner in Circle Hills. So if you'd like to order through me, I'd be happy to take down your name. It will be here by next week, please God. It's the Metzuda, Metsudah Chumash with Rashi, and it is Volume 1 Bereishis. The reason why I prefer the Metzuda over the Art Scroll, you've heard this from me, is because they approach the task of translation very differently. The Metzuda is more accurate. Now, I am not about to say that I am not a fan of Art Scroll. So what do I mean? What I mean is that for the task that we have, which is, number one, developing a sensitivity to the language, number two, perhaps even generating some skills in translation, that lo and behold, hopefully at the end of this year, one of my goals is to allow you the freedom of being able to approach the text, and to be able to do it on your own without training wheels, which is a very liberating feeling. Speak to a number of people here, they will tell you.
Yes,
you're welcome. The reason why the Art Scroll is not an accurate translation is because their goal in translation was to write a flowing translation, a readable translation, because they knew that there will be many people that will be reading the Torah text on the English side. And as such, they did not want to create a stilted text with accurate translation. However, the Metzuda approach it very differently. They break it down, it's linear, which also helps the student kind of cover up the English and test themselves out on the Hebrew, which is very helpful. And it really breaks it down into 2 or 3 or 4 word lines and translates those particular words. There's also a lot of marginal space. I recommend a mechanical pencil or a number 2 pencil. I should have this bag on any given week with pens and pencils in case you forgot yours. I recommend that you take notes in your own personal chumash, because only you know what you need to know. And over time, you will turn back to the beginning and you will smile, because you will laugh at yourself, not realizing that there was a point in time where you didn't know what that meant. And hopefully that time will come soon. Additionally, the Metzuda Chumash comes with a commentary of Rashi. Rashi is the preeminent commentary on Chumash. It is a commentary that is studied by first graders through eminent sages. And there are layers and layers and layers of profundity within Rashi itself. I give a class on the profundities of Rashi, which only scratch the surface of Rashi's commentary. But Rashi, and Rashi's task and goal, was to be able to identify the discrepancies in the text. The only challenge is that he never tells you what the question is. He goes straight to his explanation without telling you what the problem is. And that's the challenge. To be able to kind of work backwards, almost enter the mind of Rashi to try to extrapolate from his commentary and from the words that he's commenting upon to try to figure out what was wrong with the way the Torah presented it, and therefore Ex Marsasat starts digging. Have a wonderful night. Look forward to next week. We'll talk about some housekeeping rules, expectations, and I bid you all a wonderful evening.
Thank you for listening to Torah Media Atlanta. Won't you consider making a donation to help support this important work? Just go to TorahMediaAtlanta.com and click on the donate link. Thank you very much.